What is going on, everybody, and welcome back once again. My name is Jordan, also known as J Monster, and at the end of our last 4th Age episode, which if you have not checked that out yet, I recommend that you go and do so now, because it's pretty amazing, if I do say so myself. I mentioned that I want to do something a little bit surprising with upcoming content on the channel, and what that's going to take the form of, in addition to all of our other series, we're going to continue to plink away at our Elven campaigns, all of our Total War stuff. Dawn of War is going to be making a comeback pretty shortly too. But in addition to all of that, we're going to be doing a Skyrim immersive roleplay Let's Play, and you guys are going to have the reins in terms of what direction this playstyle is going to take. So I have created 4 different characters. I have written backstories for them. I have given them unique playstyles and character skill sets that corresponds to who they are and their backstory and that sort of thing. And I've also given them all unique motivations for being in Skyrim at the same time. And these motivations are going to determine kind of what choices that they're going to make throughout the campaign and who they're going to ally themselves with and how they're going to react to certain things. But with that in mind, we're going to lay down a few ground rules first. First, there is going to be no fast traveling aside from the established trade routes between the various cities. So we have no problem using the carriage system and that sort of thing. But we're gonna have to walk to like a remote corner of Skyrim. No carriage is just gonna take us out there. Go 4x4ing in your carriage through bandit infested territory. It's just weird and it breaks immersion. Second is that we are going to play uniquely in the first-person view, aside from switching out occasionally to admire the scenery. The scenery is beautiful, and to look at our characters and how cool we look. That's totally fine, but combat and everything else is going to take place in the first person. Third and finally, we are not going to undertake any quests that would be contrary to the personality of the character that you guys decide that you want to see played. So for example, one of the characters he's a very kind of morally decent person, so he's probably not going to join the Dark Brotherhood and start murdering people for money. That just doesn't really make a whole lot of sense with who he is. There are characters like that, and I deliberately made some characters that had kind of some wiggle room in terms of the moral choice aspect. So we can play a character like that if that's what you guys decide that you want to have done. And when it comes to really big decisions like joining the Dark Brotherhood or the Civil War aspect, I'm going to leave that up to you guys as well. So you're going to have to leave a comment in the comment section, tell me what you want to see happen, and I will make it so. But right now I'm going to introduce all the characters that you have to choose from right now, and I hope you guys enjoy them. The first character that I want to introduce to you today is known as Aengvir the Bosmer. Aengvir was born and raised in the province of Valenwood during times of peace and prosperity. The youngest of 3 brothers, he would often spend long hours in the woods alone to escape the teasing of his older siblings, Ned Helfin and Angenor. Being the youngest, he was also the smallest of the 3, and so Aengvir learned from an early age how to keep quiet and hide himself from the sight of those larger and stronger than him. Years later, Aengvir grew up to be a simple shopkeeper's assistant in Falinesti, the ancient moving tree city of the Bosmer. When the War of the Blue Divide broke out between the Empire and the Aldmeri Dominion, Aengvir fled as far from the front as he could keep himself. Unfortunately for Aengvir and the Bosmer of Valenwood, there was nowhere they could hide that the newly arisen Aldmeri Dominion couldn't find them. The Imperial Legion was driven from Valenwood, and the Bosmer that supported them brought beneath the iron heel of the Thalmor. Years of purges followed as the Thalmor hunted down the Blades and their allies in Valenwood. Purges happened on a regular basis, and a climate of fear and distrust settled over the once tranquil, idyllic province of Valenwood. It wasn't long before his family found themselves on the chopping block as well, and Aengvir was marked for death along with the rest of them. His mother, father, and brothers were rounded up and incinerated by Altmer Magi for trumped-up charges of sedition and treason. But Aengvir, using the ability to pass unseen that he'd learned from his childhood, managed to escape the Thalmor and their collaborators, seeking refuge in the Imperial province in the town of Anvil, hoping to earn enough to buy passage on a boat to the farthest reaches of Tamriel, as far from the Thalmor as he could possibly get. Aengvir would never have the chance to get on that ship. When the Great War broke out between the Aldmeri Dominion and the weakened Empire, Thalmor soldiers marched on Anvil and Kvatch. Being young and able-bodied, Aengvir was drafted into the local Legion defense forces as part of their reconnaissance division. He served with distinction, rooting out a company of Thalmor warriors and battle mages who were attempting to slip through Imperial lines on a suicide mission to assassinate the local Legion commander. At the conclusion of the Great War, Titus Mede destroyed Lord Narfin's forces in Cyrodiil, and effectively ground the Aldmeri advance in Cyrodiil to a halt at the Battle of the Red Ring. After the cessation of hostilities with the ratification of the White Gold Concordat, Aengvir was honorably discharged, given a small pension, and sent on his way. Looking to put some distance between himself and the Thalmor power bases in southern Tamriel, he decided it was prudent to head north to Skyrim, and the heart of Imperial power. Aengvir's trouble with the Thalmor wasn't over yet. One of the clauses of the White Gold Concordat gave the Thalmor jurisdiction to hunt down Talos worshippers across the Empire. Aengvir never stopped being hunted by the Thalmor, and was now simply a displaced private citizen with no real familial or institutional ties. It was easy for the Thalmor to take him on the road without raising a diplomatic fuss. Awaiting execution, Aengvir has only one card left to play. Use his hidden lockpicks to escape from his cell, free the other prisoners, and make a break for it, hoping that his luck holds out. Aengvir is a Bosmer, and that means he's light on his feet, great with a bow, and very at home in the forest. His former affiliation with the Imperial Legion will likely lead him to side with General Tullius and the Empire in the Civil War conflict. His skills will be focused around restoration, light armor, sneak, archery, and one-handed, and his adventure focus will likely be around the main quest, with a particular focus on the Civil War. Our second character concept is Gwenaël. Gwenaël is a Breton scholar with a particular interest in Dwemer history, culture, and machinery. Her name in the dialect of High Rock means blessed and generous. She has traveled to the Reach from High Rock in order to study the manifold Dwemer ruins to be found there, as well as study under the famed scholar of the dwarves Calselmo the High Elf, who lives in the city of Markarth. A firm believer in the freedom of access to education and knowledge, Gwenaël is in the process of writing a series of anthropological studies on Dwemer society, which she intends to submit to the Imperial Library for endorsement and publishing. She hails from a minor Breton noble family and has spent most of her childhood and adult life indulging her own academic interests, far removed from the troubles of Tamriel. Being a seasoned traveler and explorer of the many fine archaeological sites left behind by the ancient dwarves, Gwenaël is hardly one to shy away from danger. She is an experienced battle mage, though she prefers to avoid combat when possible, using alteration magic to enhance her persuasive skills to help her talk her way out of any difficulty she may encounter. Still, when backed into a corner by a Dwemer sphere or pursued by Falmer, Gwenaël can unleash the explosive powers of the Destruction Tree to destroy anyone foolish enough to think this scholar easy prey. Gwenaël is a powerful mage, broadly skilled in the use of the various schools of magic. She prefers to avoid violence when possible, seeing brute force as the province of those too dim-witted to talk to other men and mer properly in a matter that they can understand. As such, she will usually avoid direct violence unless there is no other choice. Her skills will center largely around alchemy and the schools of restoration, conjuration, alteration, destruction, and illusion. Her adventure focus will be Into the Reach, Markarth, Balskar, the main quest, as after all, what scholar can resist the dragons coming back to life? This would be a fully magic playthrough, and as such is probably the hardest character choice to start out as, but will ultimately become more powerful than the rest of them, and more varied in her ability set. Our third character option is named Skoldir. Skoldir was always a strong boy. He was weaned on tales of the great Nordic heroes like Ysgramor and Talos, who smashed aside their enemies with axe and thum, carving out a place for humankind in a world that the elves begrudged them, living brave, inspired lives that were sung about long after they vanished from Tamriel. He grew up to be everything that a Nord should be, tall, brave, and skilled at arms. When the Great War broke out, he was among the first to sign up for the Legion to serve under General Jonna in the Northern Legions. The war was nothing like the glorious songs sung in the mead halls of Jorrvaskr said it would be. The time of fire and destruction that followed was something that Skoldir preferred to forget, rather than commemorate. At the conclusion of the Great War and the signing of the White Gold Concordat, Skoldir left the Legion, disgusted that the empire that he had bled and spilt blood for would kowtow to the elves who wanted nothing more than to see mankind in fetters once again. Skoldir signed on with merchant caravans as a mercenary, protecting the vulnerable merchants and their families from bandits and raiders. Here, at least, Skoldir thought he could make a small difference in the lives of decent people. One moonlit evening, as Skoldir and the merchants he was escorting were making camp, a cry broke out from the nearby woods. Hroki, the blonde-haired Nord who they had sent to gather firewood, stumbled out of the underbrush, riddled with black-fletched arrows, blood bubbling from his mouth. Suddenly, they were set upon from all sides by small, shrieking, white-skinned, pointy-eared creatures with a mouth full of razor-sharp teeth. These degenerate elves fought with a savage, unbridled ferocity, utterly absent of any regard for their own lives. Skoldir and the other caravan guards fought with the bravery and determination Tamriel has come to expect from the Nords, but the enemy was too numerous, and soon the situation seemed hopeless. The remaining guards resolved to break out of the encirclement and flee to a nearby town to raise the guard, and Skoldir insisted on covering the retreat. The shrieking elves came at him in waves of gnashing teeth and sinewed muscle. Skoldir hacked at their arms and faces with red fury, slicing flesh and crushing bone. Suddenly, something jumped up and bit him in the side, then another bite, then another. Black shafts that hadn't been there a moment ago sprouted from Skoldir's chest, and he felt the hot blood leak from between his chainmail. The elves swarmed over him, and Skoldir knew no more. Skoldir is a Nord warrior who fights in the Nord tradition. He uses heavy armor, shield, and is skilled in the use of axe, sword, and bow. His past experiences with the Empire have left him jaded, making him the most likely candidate to side with the Stormcloaks in their struggle for independence. His skills will center around restoration, as it is definitely needed for any character in this game, because it is very difficult, one-handed, archery, heavy armor, and his adventure focus will be mainly on the main quest, the Civil War, Dragonborn, Dawnguard, and developing his skills as a Dragonborn. Ultimately, this is a more traditional playthrough of Skyrim. Our final character concept is Uthril Halalu. Formerly the son of a mid-level House Halalu official, Uthril grew up in Narsis, the traditional seat of Great House Halalu's power. Because of the immense wealth he always had at his disposal thanks to his family's close trade ties with the Empire and an open-handed and generous father, Uthril grew up in the lap of luxury. As a result, he was always proud and vain, even for a Dunmer, detached from the everyday problems of the lower classes, whom he greatly despised. The fall of House Halalu was a wake-up call for this spoiled aristocrat. Stripped of power and bereft of land and status, Uthril and his family suddenly found themselves at the lowest rung of society, spit on even by the commoners he once loathed. This sudden dose of humility was too much for a young Uthril, who began wandering the province, moving from place to place under a pseudonym, never staying in one area too long, lest his Halalu heritage be discovered and he be driven forth. In time, he developed a bad skooma and gambling habit, and shortly after his 54th birthday, Uthril finally hit rock bottom. Drunk, incoherent, and finally out of money, Uthril lay in the soaking gutters of Balmora and prayed for death. Unbeknownst to Uthril, his story was about to begin in earnest. A traveler passing through Balmora on business saw this pitiable wretch lying face up in the gutter, shivering as the autumn rain pelted down on him, and knew Uthril for what he was, a man who had given up on life and was ready to embrace death. The traveler hoisted the Dunmer urchin up, put his arm around his waist, and dragged him off to a nearby Southwell Corner Club, where he purchased a single bedroom and allowed Uthril to stay with him for the evening. Once Uthril regained consciousness, he found the traveler sitting by his bedside and asked him why he had even bothered to spend perfectly good coin on somebody so worthless. His response was short and to the point. Stendarr teaches us to be kind and generous to the peoples of Tamriel, to protect the weak, heal the sick, and give to the needy. Lying out there in the cold and wet, you seemed particularly needy just then. The traveler, as it turned out, belonged to the Vigilance of Stendarr, a recently formed order that dedicated itself to hunting down witches, werewolves, and other monsters that prey on the vulnerable mortals of Tamriel. The business the traveler was returning from was evidently the destruction of a vampire nest in a tomb in the nearby hills. Uthril was offered a choice. The Vigilant would be leaving for the mainland by boat the next morning. He could stay in the Corner Club for the night, free of charge, and return to his skooma and vagabond lifestyle. Or he could follow the Vigilant and the path of Stendarr, forsaking wealth and comfort for a life of discipline and service. Ultimately, Uthril decided that his life in Morrowind was over, and elected to follow the Vigilant. A serendipitous choice, as it turns out, since a few short years later, Vardenfell was destroyed by the Red Mountain, and mainland Morrowind was invaded by the Argonians. Now a fully trained adept of the Order, Uthril has departed for Skyrim, where rumors of vampires, lycanthropes, death cults, Daedra, and something much, much worse have reached the ears of the Vigilants. Uthril has had word of a vast underground network populated by unimaginable horrors from the forgotten age of Tamriel's creation that have begun to gnaw their way back into the world. Eldritch horrors and soul-sucking beasts? Just another Morndas for Uthril and the Order. Uthril is a talented spellblade, and being a Dunmer, has a natural inclination towards the Destruction School. He is also an able swordsman, as the prey the Vigilance hunt are significantly stronger physically than mortals could ever hope to be. Uthril also wears light armor that allows him freedom of movement and doesn't hinder his spellcasting, making him a flexible, versatile warrior who prefers to tire his prey out before moving in for the kill. His major skills will center around the schools of Alteration, Destruction, Restoration, as well as one-handed and light armor skills. His DLC, mod, and adventure focus will be the main quest, Dawnguard, Dragonborn, Into the Reach, and the Skyrim Underground. And there you have it, your 4 choices. Take your time with it and choose wisely, and I will see you guys in our Skyrim series.